on the Children's Service Levy Renewal by Jenny Martin. Good to see you
Yes.
again.
It's very good to see all of
Can we have a roll?
Oh, you need a roll call for that too?
Please?
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
you here.
Dr. Estrab,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here. Your job is to remind me, remember? Okay. That's we had a little interchange earlier today.
Okay, I
Jenny.
missed not having that assistant in my home because my cats unfortunately do not remind me. It's nice my assistant does. But it's very good to be here this evening. I am Jenny Martez, and I'm the director of the Department of Job and Family Services in Clark County. For those of you who don't know us, although most people do, we are what's referred to as a quadruple combined agency. We administer child support enforcement, bio means job, all of the public assistance programs in Clark County, and what I'm here to speak to you about this evening, Public Children's Services Agency, which we refer to as our Family Children's Services Division. COVID has impacted lives in a number of ways, and one of the ways that's impacted us this year, we do have an issue on the ballot for the citizens of Clark County, and it's a renewal of our Children's Services levy. It was last for the community in 2010. This year, we're at to keep important services going, but it's made it difficult to get the word out to the public because we're not getting out in the public as much as we once did. So this evening, I would simply like to give the commissioners a brief update of what our services involve in family and children's services, what sorts of things the levy funds, and the importance of it continuing to provide for the safety and stability of children and families in our community. So I have a brief PowerPoint, which Ryan told me this would work. Not working. Okay. Sure. I knew it was too good. I finally got a clicker to use because I work for the county and I can't afford it. And we have it. But the Family and Children's Services Division protect our community's most vulnerable citizens. They protect our children and our senior citizens. And I really am incorporating senior citizens more, even though we're talking about a children's services levy, because we're seeing a growing amount of grandparents in our community stepping forward to help raise their children. So levy funds, while they don't go directly to the elderly, are providing service so that children can be kept with family. We investigate our reports of abuse and neglect. And what we really strive to do is find solutions to ensure that children and the elderly in our community live in safe and supportive living environments. This one gonna work? So the first thing we like to talk about with children's services is in terms of what we do, we investigate calls for abuse and neglect. And you may have noticed throughout the community, we have our child pinwheels, prevention pinwheels put up. We couldn't do that event in April, which is our typical Child Abuse Prevention Month. So we did it this October because it's an important reminder to the community that nearly 3,700 calls or adults listed on there were people who were calling in 2019 saying, we think that there may be something going on in this. You need to investigate. Out of those calls, we investigated over 1,360 calls. Now keep in mind, out of those 3,700 calls, quite a few of them could have been on the same family. So we get multiple people referring. The majority of cases that we in, as we put it, to investigate further are physical abuse. That's a little over 40% of the caseload came in, children that we were able to establish had physical abuse going on. The next highest category is neglect. Neglect takes on a lot of different legal definitions, but that is typically when the child is not going to have the food resources they need, they're not going to be having their medical needs met, they're not going to have a variety of other needs met. Emotional maltreatment, I think we've seen that, and that has some very technical definitions. And it goes on. You can see that sexual abuse, which is something that people think about most when it comes to um, child abuse, is a smaller amount of what gets reported. But that doesn't mean that that would be the only amount that violation that. But we get all sorts of referrals that come in, and dependent upon the type of referral, that gears what services we're going to be providing to the family. The entryway to our most severe cases of abuse and neglect are our child advocates. And at the Child Advocate Center, we work as a team with law enforcement, prosecutor's office, have victim advocates there, we have medical support there, we have contracts with the Rocking Horse for medical need, and we also have a working relationship with Dayton Children, so our most severely abused children are taken in and they follow complete protocols, and we have therapeutic professionals. The reason we have the team together is to cut down on the amount of times the child is traumatized by having to tell the story. Because some of these children, when they come in, can be as young as 3 if they're speaking to us, or they can be up to 14. But you can imagine having to retell that story to multiple people, which is what once happened. Now it's one group. They're interviewed. We are able to tape the interview. Law enforcement and others are able to then review the case so that we cut down on the amount of times the child is traumatized. The Child Advocacy Center was started a number of years ago in Clark County through a victim of crime grant that came out through the Attorney General's office. And for a while it was run under the prosecutor's office, run out of several different places, was almost an independent organization. It is now part of Job and Family Service, and it is probably a good thing because funding for that essential program has been curtailed severely. So now there's really not enough money to run the full-blown program, but because it's part of the department, we are committed to keeping that going. And we have levy dollars that help support the work of that to protect our most traumatized children. Our goal is we want to offer families help earlier in the process when abuse or neglect may be starting so that children can remain in their homes. We have no desire to remove children from their own homes unless that's the only alternative that's available. We know children are going to thrive best in their own environment with a family that has been provided tools to provide supportive and essential needs. The number of children that we place out of home continues to decline. And in the 29 years I've been with the agency, that makes me sound old, I have seen that number decrease, and I think that that is a good thing. However, we try not to leave any child in a home if they are truly safe. I want the public. So in 2019, the average number of children placed in agency custody was 89. Those are the ones that we had actual custody of. But the average number of children placed with kin was 140. Kinship care is an initiative that Clark County got into early. And with kinship care, what we are looking at is finding someone the child knows for them to be placed with. They cannot be with mom and dad. Many times this may be a grandmother, an aunt, a cousin. Sometimes it's a close family friend. You know, I was very fortunate when I grew up. There were some family friends we had that were just like my family, and I could go to them with their needs. So the number of children replaced with them was 140. The benefit of a kinship care placement is that the agency does not have to take legal custody. The child is in an environment where they know people, and there is less trauma to the child because can you imagine being a 6-year-old that's taken up to a stranger's house in the middle of the night, to not know the people? Very, very frightening. So we like kinship care whenever possible. The downside of kinship care is there's not as much funding available to provide for the needs of it. So if you suddenly received custody, agreed to take in 3 of your nieces, that's going to be a hardship on you financially in terms of just getting beds, et cetera. So we use a lot of our levy funds to help support those. The other reason we try to work with kinship care is the average cost per day to put a children in a foster home can range from $30 to $100 a day, depending upon the need. Many of the children that are taken and removed and placed elsewhere have some pretty traumatic needs. The average cost for group homes and residential centers can range from $200 to $300 a day. We have multiple children that we are currently paying $10,000 a month place. That is, and they receive the best therapy they can. We also focus on trying to get children in what we call the forever homes or the adoptive homes. And that is what happens when we aren't able to keep a child within and it's impossible for them to go back to their families. In 2019, we had 10 children adopted. In 2020, with the pandemic going on, we have adopted 14. Probably my most touched one that I have right now is an adopted baby. We have a young lady who is 17 and she is going to be 18. No, she was looking at going out, no family, no connection. What do you do when you're at that age? Family agreed to adopt even though she's 18. So she's going to continue to need after that, and they wanted. So our levy dollars go to help support those taking those. Our division focuses on family support. So some of the programs we have a 30 days family program, and that works intensively to get youth out of foster care within 30 days of placement. We want them in foster care for the time period as possible. We have youth permanency roundtables that work to find the older youth permanent home or permanent connection. So even if they don't have a formal adoption, it's going to be someone that agrees they will be that person's mentor, their friend, and help them as they adult. We have search and engagement practices that look for kinship the moment a crisis arises, and we continue to do that throughout the life. Got work. That is what we try to track down 10 children. And Wendy's Wonderful Kids work to find children in permanent custody, connections, and permanent, including adoption. One of the things, if you listen to the governor in terms of some of the things he has done in the past couple of years in putting out programs for children and children's services across the state, oh my goodness, and increasing the services that are available. These are programs that are not new to Clark County. These are programs that we were piloting and testing over the last 5 or 10 years because we have that commitment to our children. And that's made possible due to the flexibility of funding that we receive through our levy. Some of the other things we do for family-centered work, we have a duly involved youth program that we just started with the juvenile court in Clark County, and that is to improve service delivery for the youth that are involved in both the juvenile system, and the juvenile justice system, and the child welfare. Because we know the more systems that youth is involved with, the greater chance that they will end up involved with the adult system that deal with. We also have multidisciplinary teams that meet together on a regular basis to provide support to the parents, and we also include the parents in all of these. We want them to be a partner to what's going on with their experience. Some of the programs that our levy supports throughout the community, and this is just some of them, On the Rise in Northampton, it's a very successful program that works with youth. Project Jericho has seen thousands and thousands of children over the years, a nationally recognized program. Osterland Service Coordination, the Miami Valley Head Start, empowering our youth, the Clark County Literacy Coalition. Levy funds go to fund that. Youth and their families need. Hope Skills for Life, and the Encompass Parenting and Marriage program. So we try to bring in innovative programming for the youth whenever we can to meet the needs. Because since we are a government agency, we get money from the state and the feds, but sometimes the money that they give us and the use they designate it for, not what is needed for the youth part. Because we know our community, and we know our youth, we know our strengths, and we know our weaknesses. And if you have, someone gives you $1 million, you can only spend it on pink paper towels. Well, that really doesn't help you if what you need is a bottle of water. So The levy gives us flexibility to be able to adequately meet the needs of our children and families. It's three mil renewal levy. It's the same as it was in 2010. We're not increasing things. And it allows us to provide a continuation of funding that's crucial, providing the needed services to children and families. And it is not something that just helps agents. It provides one-on-one service in the placement calls. And what makes it even more critical this year is that we lost a major funding stream. I don't think I did it. We lost a major funding stream that we had had for a number of years called Protect Ohio. And that was a federal waiver that said basically, we're going to push money out to these counties that are part of this waiver project, and you figure out what works right. And it didn't have the strings. The loss of that funding allowed us to get many of our innovative, or when we had that funding, we were able to develop many of our innovative programs, which do provide the services we need. With that funding going away, that gives us $4 to $5 million swing a year in essence, lost revenue. So Protect Ohio, the short form of it, allowed us to use monies, maximize other monies, because we could use that money. We could save other monies and do things like put more money to senior service. And it just becomes really critical. And that is my quick overview.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
Oh, you
Mr.
do.
Estrada?
I'd just like to, as the former superintendent of schools here in Springfield, commend the work of the Field Family and Children's Service staff, as well as the men and women of the Springfield Police Division, who work closely together to keep our children safe. It's an tireless and sometimes thankless job, but they are protecting our future, our children, and keeping them safe. I am personally very pleased to endorse the approval of this renewal levy. Absolutely critical to the future of our community, in my humble estimation. Thank you.
Thank you,
What else?
Jenny. And I would like to ask our citizens to please consider coming out and voting and vote for the Children's Service as a renewal.
And I will add that since we sent our staff home, and many of them are still working home, children's services workers have still, throughout the pandemic and will continue, gone into homes, interviewed children, and investigated abuse and neglect. They are the ones who have continued doing, they are true frontline workers in our estimation. And as one of them stated, in fact, on a national news report for it, she said, there is nothing I would rather do now than continue to work to keep children safe. And that sentiment scared all of us. Thank
You. I assume some of you back there would really like to sit down. There's plenty of space over on this side. Sit down. If you're here for the hearing, it's probably take a while. So feel free to find a place to sit.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. In an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19 and allow public participation at city commission meetings, face coverings are required to be worn by guests at all times. Seating is available with designated spacing, and all guests must exit the building following the posted arrow signs. I think those would be to my right. Audience members wishing to speak on agenda items or during the public comment period may do so at the podium when the mayor asks for comment. Please give your name and address for the record. Commissioners and staff using microphones for the recordings are seated at least 6 feet apart from each other and between plexiglass barriers. And we thank you for your cooperation, and we would like to be able to keep the commission meetings open.
If I get too close to my microphone, it starts buzzing. Clerk, This is, let me call the public hearing scheduled for 7 o'clock to order. What's the purpose of this?
It is to consider a proposed development plan.
Your motion?
I'm sorry, Mayor, can I do a roll call for this meeting?
Sure.
Mrs. Chilton,
Here.
Dr. Estrop,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Rue.
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here.
Would you like the legal notice information? Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed development plan for 15.4 acres located at 3641 Middle Urbana Road was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on September 18, 2020.
I move the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Clerk,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
yes. Staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. So you'll see the subject property is outlined in yellow on the screen. To the north, you'll see Route 334, and this is Kingsgate Road to the south. For the surrounding land use and zoning, to the north, as I said, is State Route 334. To the east is multifamily, zoned RM44, and to the south and west is single-family residential, zoned RS5. And this is a site plan the developer submitted for the project. For the background on this case, the applicant seeks approval for a multifamily development. The development will consist of 94 units. It will consist of single-story buildings no taller than 18 feet. The streets will be private and include snow removal and maintenance. Part of this project will consist of connecting the two sections of Kingsgate Road. You can see on this map, the dark gray areas are the parts of Kingsgate that are currently constructed, and this is what is being proposed. And then there will be a road heading north to the apartment development. The RM44 zoning district allows for a multifamily development of this size, but requires approval from City Commission stating development with 2 or more principal uses or buildings on lots larger than 2 acres, or with a multifamily dwelling or dwellings of more than 24 units, regardless of the size of the lot, shall be subject to the special provisions of subsection 1108.07b. In its review of the proposed development, the Planning Board and the City Commission shall make specific findings of fact relative to the following criteria: that the development will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained as be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with existing or officially planned uses of the general vicinity, that the development will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or officially planned future neighboring uses from the standpoint of noise, lights, congestion, or traffic generation, which would be incompatible with the neighborhood environment, that the development will be served adequately by essential public facilities, that the development will not involve uses, activities, and conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare, and it will have vehicular approaches to the property which shall be so designed as to not create and interfere with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares. For the analysis, the Connect Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows this future character area as traditional neighborhood, high intensity. The thoroughfare plan shows Kingsgate Road is classified as a collector street. Return reports from other departments, there were no objections. Planning and zoning comment is the development complies with the zoning restrictions of the RM44 district. The staff recommendation for this item is approval of the development plan, and the city planning board did recommend unanimous approval. clicker stopped working. This is a view from the west side of the Kingsgate Road section that's complete, looking towards the parcel. And this is a view looking west. I can answer any questions. The applicant is also present and has a presentation as well.
Can we go ahead and hear the presentation? Petitioner, and we'll have questions from the.
Greetings, folks. My name's Gregory Thurman, 20 Village Square, Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm the Vice President of Acquisitions for Redwood USA. I do run the Southwest Ohio region in Cincinnati, Dayton, and Hope Springs. So I have a very short presentation. It is 12 or 13 slides, but it's mostly visual. And I won't be redundant information that was shared already. On the left. This is
It skipped
Oh.
yours.
so. Okay. Who is Redwood? Single story developer, been in business 29 years. We have over 12,000 units in our portfolio over 8 states. Even under the current condition, we're 98% leased, and more importantly, 98% collected. So that's due to some of the things we get into in a slide to screen our app. Resident focused, community oriented. We have 2 folks that are on site every day. One is a maintenance technician that lives on site. The other one's a lease on site every day or with a partner to fill her off. These are the states we build in. Some of the slides. I did highlight the Southwestern Ohio district for municipalities or that we build. We're very established, very southwest area. As we mentioned before, what do we build? The big feature with our product is that we're single story, and that every unit has a 2-car attached garage. So these live and feel just like townhome that you would rent on vacation. We don't have large parking areas, parking lots. We don't have dumpster pads. Everything is just like it would be if built for living in there as if you own. Who lives here? The thing I'd like to highlight here, our rents range from $50. That's equivalent to mortgages of our tenants go through credit check. So they're highly vetted. They're interested. Not everybody understands that really. So here's the site. Covered very well. Plan. The RM44 current zoning. We're not asking for zoning classification. The RM44 is a very powerful zoning, and it would allow several hundred units built on this for a multi. We're bringing to the table relatively low density, very single story, what we consider low impact, and we've proven that considerably. I wanted to point that out. Preliminary development plan, should it be approved, does lock in our plan at 90 units. I can't come back and say I want to add 10, 20, 30 more units, even though the zoning allows for it. So the preliminary development cannot be altered, that may be downward in those cases. I just covered some of the plan benefits that generally low density, even though we're multifamily. Do appeal to older residents. Half of our residents typically 55 and over. Do have a segment of home renters that are professionals, night shift obligation, police, fire, nurse, doctor, pilot. So we have a really mix of professionals. The other nice thing is we are private, take care of all the infrastructure, no burden on the public works, very little burden on the school district, about 4 or 5% of our units. We'll even have living in the pretty good for low impact public. Just a couple of highlights of our exteriors. Everybody gets 2-car attached garage. Everybody gets a rear patio, grill, or screened-in porch unit. We use high quality construction materials. Our insulated walls by 6 walls. Add-in realized code is work. We use a stronger structure. It proves long term to last. Couple that the minimum life. We do pride in giving each home renter very efficient unit, energy star certified windows, LED lighting packages. We also, every unit gets won't skimp anything. The interiors are nice. Every unit is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with den space or garage unit. Don't build 3-bedroom units, 4-bedroom. So keep the number of occupants down to something that we consider manageable, highly desirable. So there. And I can answer questions now if that's appropriate, and I'll be available to.
The city plan had a representative from the senior retirement development just to the east, but he wasn't necessarily an objective project.
Thank you. Now for the developer, who are more or less saying that these are renters, they're not.
That's correct, ma'am.
And could you state rent again, because that will leave out a lot of folks I know with price.
It is a segmented and targeted market at $1,500 to $1,900.
And the lease is for a year, I take it?
We vary and stagger our leases depending on the home renter's needs and our attrition schedule, so that nobody's lease comes up at the same, if possible.
How many units again?
94.
90. Thank you.
The other commissioners,
I have a question about the entryway into the development. So this is, a fairly, it's not a heavily traveled road except for the Kingsgate area. And, my concern would be the increased traffic into that area. I'm sure there's a couple other concerns out there to see a lot more cars coming back and forth in those roads and not really getting what they expected when they moved into Kingsgate. Now they have a higher traffic area in this development. That would be a concern of mine if I lived in Kingsgate. And I have a couple other concerns, but go ahead and answer that one.
So this zoning's been in place for over a decade. So it's no surprise that there's going to be multiple. We are limiting our present per unit, which is a good thing. we're doing good. We're down zoning this parcel. That could be substantially higher density and higher impact to the road, everything else. The other nice thing, we have volumes and volumes statistics over our 12,000 units. We average about 1.8 people per unit, so we have about a 10% single person household in our unit, and our cars accordingly are about 1.8 units or 1.8 automobiles per unit. When we do traffic studies on thoroughfares, we are about 40% of what a single family generates as far as traffic during peak hours. The ITE manual confirms that, and we are even about 10 or 15 lower than that with empirical data over 12,000 units, 59 years of study. So, nice thing about that, peak hour, rush hour is very low activity from our residents here. So that helps mitigate some of that. But again, the site has been zoned this for a decade or so, and it could be much worse. I doubt that it'll be much better from any applicant that came here with a RM44 zoning designation. And when you have empty nest, typically you don't have large families of teenagers driving at higher speeds neighborhood. That's just my
So have you developed a similar community off of a development that you're putting that on, like where there's, a minimum $250,000 of property and much more around that area? Have you done another pocket community like that, or probably not the right word, I'm not a developer, but that type of community off a development like
Almost all of our communities are adjacent to pretty upscale single-family housing and a transition of either a business district like big box stores or a state route. So we're that transitional use in the land planning world that transitions from highway use to a multifamily use. And throughout Dayton, we are up against or adjacent to single. In fact, we had one particular case just last month where we were approved against a single family home, and people were so upset they put their house up until the next day, and they got 6 offers, $40,000 of. So we're accustomed to being next door to single families. Few people can't live with it, perhaps, but we have a really good track record of being a good neighbor. And that's the other thing too. We're owned by one parent company, and we're the neighbor forever. So we've never sold a unit, never sold a property, and that's on. So you can count on what. And we're good neighbors. I'll know a few people by first name by the time we're done with this, because we'll communicate through the process, and we will do.
So if you own the property or a couple houses right next to it, you probably could wouldn't you be concerned if this is going to be developed in your backyard, right?
Unless I went down the road and saw one of a Redwood living community. Huber Heights, Fairborn are the closest here. We're in Sugar Creek Township, Washingtonville. So there's no reason to be afraid as much knowing exactly what you're getting in your backyard. But like I said, we're not changing the zoning. That's something of multi.
Just trying to ask questions. If I lived right there on that, I would have my concerns as well. But your rent, $1,500 to $1,900 is definitely not affordable for everyone, and would definitely.
I will add, if there's some close points of contact that need to be addressed, I'll come in and I'll work on the buffering. A lot of times I'll do a double buffer system with landscaping to try and create separation for both parties on either side of the fence. There's only a few neighbors now. The new neighbors they're getting, we rarely have issues with new construction. They know it.
Thank you.
Stephen Egret, I'd like to talk to Steve for just a minute. Stephen, on the this has a 3641 Middle Urbana Road, but you're telling me that is access going to be off of Kingsgate? Okay. who is gonna absorb the cost of connecting the Kings Gates? Right now, there's a circle in between it. Who's gonna pay to connect the Kings Gate Road? Okay, but is the only access to this property at 3641 Middle Urbana Road going to be off of Kingsgate Common? What
Limit.
would change that?
They have a drive right here. There is an easement that will connect these two properties. Right now, there's utilities here. And in part of the purchase contract, 15, 20 years ago, that was supposed to be a drive to be developed. But at this point, hasn't been developed.
Right.
That might be a question the developer or property owner could better answer.
Okay, but currently, there's gonna be one way in and one way out?
It could potentially be this way or down to Kingsgate.
But currently, like he's saying, right now.
Currently,
it's-
though, as it's been submitted, there's one way in and one way out, and it's on Kingsgate.
Well, on the plan, they actually show the drive being constructed.
If you go back a slide, Steve,
Should I
to
assume
the,
that that's gonna be connected?
that road right there, so the road that is coming down from the apartment development connects into, there's 2 points there. One is to the left or west would be the existing Kingsgate neighborhood, and the end of the cul-de-sac, calming circle, that exists currently for Kingsgate Court. There's also a connection to the, what would be the east, down to where the condos are connected, which is, a Kingsgate development, but is the condo development that goes out to Middle Urbana. So they would have access out to Middle Urbana through that point or through Kingsgate to Durr Road.
Okay, that's
Other
my
questions?
only question, is the access, egress, and regress.
Other question?
Could you review that again? And show me the distinction between what is in the plan and what currently exists? I'm having a little trouble understanding.
Steve, do you want me to address that, or?
So when this section of road's completed, they could either enter off of Middle Urbana to the east or off to Durr Road to the west. Then the
Okay.
road will connect north to the apartment complex.
Okay,
And the picture that Steve showed earlier was the end of the cul-de-sac of Kingsgate Road and Kingsgate Court. So
okay.
it currently dead ends
Okay.
Kingsgate.
So essentially, let me restate it, make sure I've got it. You can enter on Kingsgate either from the east or the west off Middle Urbana Road or off of Durr. Where is this magic driveway that doesn't exist quite?
Is that the North Point extension?
Yeah.
So that's where
Kind-
the church is, right there on that road, am I right?
Yeah, I believe it's further east.
So that could be another point.
It could, yeah. There is an easement here for utilities.
And where would that potential road put traffic?
Back onto,
Middle Urbana.
Back on Middle Urbana?
But if you could actually access Kingsgate on Durr Road like you do right now and go right on through and exit onto Middle Urbana when this is all said and done, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is any of that property that you're connecting gonna be private property belonging to the developer, or is it going to be public street
It's going to be a public street.
all the way through?
Yeah.
that would be a big concern. Sure. Traffic.
Thank you.
Anything else, commissioners?
I'm sure,
Right
hang
now.
on.
Okay, go ahead.
Well designed for speed, calming effect. If residents choose not to, of course, you can swirl around that, but our section of the new Kingsgate connector is gonna be a very, low-speed scenario by default, by the design of it. So that's that's another plus to the way it's designed, which was done several decades or so ago. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Thank you.
Okay, are there questions or comments from the audience? If so, you need, no, you have to go to a microphone. You can't just ask a question. See. Name or address for the record, please.
Mark Peters. I live at 1481 Kingsgate. I'm really the last house right there by the basketball hoop where they're going to connect. My biggest concern, and I've heard other people, I'll let you guys have your talk, traffic. The gentleman said it's going to be very low impact. If he builds 94 units there at roughly 1.8 cars per unit, let's just round it up and say 200 cars. In that little area on our streets where our kids are playing, that's unacceptable. I mean, that's going to be my major concern. Many people in here, you're nodding your heads. That's a huge concern, adding 200 cars in that area. And opening it up to Middle Urbana, that's going to be a major cut through. People are going to be flying through there. They do now with the existing roundabout. So I don't know how your calming roundabouts or whatever are going to work, but that's my major concern.
Could you, those two of you, could you let him answer that question?
Can you restate the question for me so I?
The question is, how are you going to hold the speed down, correct?
The speed down and the 200 cars. You said that's low impact. You're putting 200 more cars in that neighborhood.
Well, that's an incorrect statement.
1.8 per unit. You had 94.
Wait,
I rounded it up.
Let him talk too.
Sorry.
Turns.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So I did state that we have 1.8 cars average per unit. Those cars don't drive at the same time. They drive throughout the daylight hours of the day. They typically do not drive during the impact hours of rush hour morning and rush hour evening. So that helps. Typically, rush hour traffic is the highest. Now, if you drive in a circle, you know that you have to drive slower than a straight line like a drag strip. So the effect of the design of that public right-of-way is well done. You cannot drive straight through at full speed. It's impossible. Well, nearly impossible. So that's a good design.
I think I have the same question as one of our other commissioners. I think as a follow-up to your question. There could be one or two ways in.
I'm assuming one way in. There's an old easement for that senior center to come out onto our property and out the public road. And I believe cease and desist using the existing easement out the middle of Urbana, which will be 250 feet apart from Kingsgate, where it is now. So I am subject to whatever the previous agreement is here, and I'm accommodating that. I just soon not have, well, I'm open to putting the pavement there and using that private easement for anybody that wants to use it. So I'm open to, I don't think that's available. And that's between the landowner and the city and current record. Just like I don't own the land where the public street is going to go either.
Okay.
Thank
you. Folks behind you.
My name is Jim Thompson. I live in the condos near there. We had a meeting in our condo association, discussed this thoroughly.
Wait just a moment. Could we not have audience noise? Okay, go ahead.
We figured the same thing as 200 cars. Besides that, you got to understand, when they open this up, you're taking about 100 houses on the other side of Kingsgate coming off their road. And that's going to be a thoroughfare coming through. And all those kids over there go to Kenton Ridge High School, which means they're going to come all the way through, I imagine, to go to Kenton Ridge. Now, on Sunday mornings for the last 5 years, First Christian Church out there has hired cops every Sunday just to get people in and out. And that's what we're dealing with right now, let alone adding another 94 units, approximately 200 cars coming down there, 180. So it's a traffic concern. And some of those, the cars we've got a turnaround coming in. There's going to be another turnaround there, another turnaround on the other side. So the traffic is going to be a major problem. And, I know 3 or 4 of you up there sitting right now. I've lived my whole life in Springfield. I don't know where they're going to find people. It's going to be $20,000 a year rent. That seems absurd in our area, but maybe I'm wrong. Debbie here.
Hi, my name's Debbie Stahl. I live at 1850 Pinehurst Drive in the same Mr. Jim Thompson. As he said, traffic is a big issue. So coming down Kingsgate, we were wondering, is there a possibility for another turnaround there? We don't know what all the plans are for Kingsgate other than opening it up. That's all we've told is going to be opening up. So what kind of safety issues are we going to have? As everyone said, there's going to be another 180 cars, potential cars coming back and forth, the kids from Kingsgate homes that will be coming to Urbana, the First Christian Church. There's going to be a lot of traffic. We do a lot of walking there. We dog walk, we ride bikes. That Kingsgate area is not going to be safe to do any of that once this development is up and running. So that's a big concern for us. There's no sidewalk there. I don't know if that's a potential or not. So there will be walking availability, bike riding availability or not. Traffic is a big issue, which you've already addressed. I just wanted to reiterate that. Another issue is drainage. That ground is a little bit higher than our ground. We're at the Meadows. There's another complex called the Villas. We're at the Meadows, which this will be kind of just behind us a little bit to the west. That's a little bit higher, so once they start excavating, doing all this construction, things are going to kind of come downhill. Could that potentially damage our condos, our homes? Do we have any assurance that that won't happen? If it does happen, do we have any recourse? Those are questions that we have. Again, when you talk about targeting retired people 55 and over or young professionals, I'm not sure what demographic for Springfield was used, but I could pull up the median age in Springfield was 38. Again, I don't know if that was an old paper that I found, but what I found was 38. As far as education, when you talk about young professionals, from what I found, from the demographics that I found, like 15% of Springfield graduated high school. There were like 3% or 4% had an associate's degree, and not a large amount for bachelor's or master's. So I'm kind of confused as to what demographic makeup was used when you guys targeted Springfield versus somebody else. You said that you've never sold a company. That was one, or that was one of the questions that I had. If you did have the availability to sell, and if you did sell, can the use of this change? Can it be sold off as condos? As opposed to being high end, can it be increased to subsidized housing? Is that a potential issue? We would like to know that. I hope I'm not leaving anything else. I'm kind of speaking from our whole association. So if I did forget something, hopefully somebody will point it out and they'll come up to the podium. Thank you.
So let's be clear, we really can't have everybody go up to the podium, but if there are other people who have something new to add, please do it. Go ahead. Now, is she in front of you? No, you
Did
can
you have more
go.
questions?
Warren, did he have any answers to her? She did ask a couple things of
Okay.
clarification.
Okay, so she asked him questions. Feel
So,
free.
one of the big comments was, and a great comment to add, is that the properties to the south are generally lower suited. We are the crown of the topography there, and we are draining everything towards the highway. Our plan shows it, our lake retention pond shows it, everything is geared to go north. If we are not a good neighbor, you have the power of public works to shut us down and make us comply. That's a rare occasion, if ever, and that's a right that anybody has as a neighbor to utilize their city services to pass it.
You want to speak to her demographics question? Because I had how'd you find this information to come to Springfield, Ohio? What attracted you to that? And obviously you've done some research because you're a developer, so you think you could fill this at
Yeah.
$1,500 to $1,900 per
Yeah.
rental, per.
Yeah. So the demographics are extremely strong in this neck of Springfield Township for a couple of reasons.
More.
I'm sorry, not Springfield
ahead.
Township.
Yeah.
Near Springfield. But the housing demographic is very suited for us, and we look for older established neighborhoods of high-end housing through the country club and the state park, and going north, extremely suited demographic. It's not a function of education that indicates wealth or income, and the incomes in this area in a 3-mile ring are very well suited for these rents. And like I said, if you want to see what it looked like, there's 2 trips less than 15 minutes away in Fairborn and in Huber Heights. Our website covers the directions to get there. It shows you the rents in all of those communities. So none of this is made up. You go to a website, you can take your notes, and you can go to our community and see how quiet it is. And there's never, ever a time where there's 200 of our residents' cars on the road at any given time. In fact, I stopped at Fairborn today and Huber Heights today, was there for a half hour each. Not one car came out of that driveway. So it's a peaceful neighborhood.
Okay, now you.
Donovan Knight. I live on Pinehurst along with the rest of the folks there. Couple of questions with what we're seeing here. You're talking about multiple exits to the builder. Am I correct in saying that your plan is to come out of your complex to a rotary, and then your folks will be able to exit east or west on Kingsgate? Am I correct there, sir? Okay, so you do not have a plan to use the current driveway into the elderly housing. I mean, if you go back there, that driveway is not going to handle that kind of traffic. And I want to make sure and clear that you do not have a plan to use their current driveway as egress or access to that property. And I got another question, but go ahead, sir.
I have no plan to do that. The reason that ingress-egress easement was set up, as I understand, was to allow the senior living to use that easement 150 feet, go to a public street instead of the easement that goes through the church property. That can be a one-way street so that we don't use the church property. We use the public street that's designed to service the property.
Okay.
My next question would be to the city, that when this zoning was done for this property, was it not done in the good spirit of helping this church put in senior housing? Is that what that zoning was set for? Did this church come out and ask for that zoning so they could build this senior housing to help people? Is that the spirit in which this zoning was done? I wasn't there then. I don't know. So I question that. And also, if you would, this coming Sunday, if we could get our city commission
to come and I want you to drive through this condo complex. And I want you to turn around and go to leave. And as you go to leave, you wait on that police officer to allow you to go to your mass at your church in due process. Because it's a situation. I leave my home and I go to work to Durr Road. This entrance onto Middle Urbana is getting very similar to coming out of my office on Durr Road. They come around 334, they're pretty quick. By the time they get to the vet's office, they're moving pretty good. And to get out of this driveway and to take a 4-cylinder engine, bring it up to speed before you get run over, can be a problem. So I ask you to do that so that you can see our traffic situation. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I have no memory of what happened back then. I don't think anybody else on the commission does either.
It would be you two if there was.
What?
It would be you two if there was. So.
Research though, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
staff will research
The
that.
staff can look. Yes. Go ahead. No, she was there. Go ahead. You were there first. You get to go ahead.
I've had a speed regulation sign brought out 2 times, which the one that flashes tells you you're going over. I don't care what goes back there. What I care about is that just 2 weeks ago, I had to scream at one of my son's friends because he was this close to getting hit by a car that was speeding down Kingsgate. 2 of my neighbors are right there with small children. They're always all playing and crossing the street. I know this is a big deal and it's a big profit maker. What is the life of one of our children worth? What is the plan for that section? I don't care about the calming island down there. That is a great tool because it does slow people down. What about that huge stretch of Kingsgate that all these high school kids, parents late for work, cutting through Kingsgate to get to Middle Urbana? What's the plan for us? All those houses there, there's dozens of them. I have seen kids almost get killed more times than I can think about. I want to know how our children are going to be protected from this thoroughfare that is going to open up. I found it interesting that the last slide said the word peace and comfort. Maybe for your residents that are in this new development, not for us who have paid our taxes for years and years and lived there and grown up with our neighbors and grown up with our children. This is not okay at all. Can he answer that?
Let me be clear with you. The city doesn't make any money off this.
I'm not talking about the city. I'm
Okay.
talking about that
Okay.
gentleman.
I just want to make sure.
I'm well aware. Yep.
What are you asking? You want him to respond?
Yes, I want, well, I guess a follow-up to that is, when we first started asking questions, it was that there was going to be 1 entrance. And then Dr. Eastrup got out that it was going to be 2. And now there's possibly a 3rd. I don't even know what part is true.
I don't think there's that many entrances.
No.
He
Just the
talked
2.
about coming from Kingsgate, coming
Mhm.
from Middle Urbana,
Mhm.
and then the easement.
Yeah.
So that's 3. And we weren't given a straight answer on that easement. He said, well, it's on the plan. I'm in sales. Been in sales for 24 years. I get it.
Okay.
My point is, how are we going to protect all the families that are on that stretch of Kingsgate from that calming circle all the way down to Durr? How?
We got it. We got it. Do you want to respond or not?
So this is probably the number 1 issue in 40 years of doing this, and I respect that. This is a call to the city to solve a possible issue. This plan was designed this way for many years. It was always going to connect. Whether or not Kingsgate has a stretch of road that is a road hazard, that is something for the city and the Public Works Department and the city engineer to figure out. I don't own that. It's all public right of way. Everybody that owns property anywhere between those 2 roads, Middle Urbana and Durr Road, has the right and the entitlement to use that public right of way. But what happens at these meetings is it calls attention to dangerous situations that can be studied. So at least that is on the table, whether we
You're
go
right.
here or not.
They do have the right to use it, but it's not connected right now. It's going to be a lot different once that's connected, I think.
I understand that.
It's going to be night and day. That's why I asked, is that the only way in? And I still didn't get a real good answer, but that's going to have to be worked out.
I don't own the property that the public
Well,
road is going to be built on.
There's no really other way.
All I
to
can tell
go
you
about
is
it.
it's got a 3641 Middle Urbana Road address, so that it has to have an access from Middle Urbana Road. Where Kingsgate, technically, I can't see why it would ever have to come into play if you didn't want it to. So I think this is something you're going to have to work with because of the neighbors here. But I'm just answering your question a minute ago. You didn't create the problem, but right now it's not a real problem. But yet, Maria, I was just out there Sunday, and I don't know the neighbor that's got their own slow down signs. That's you. They look nice. They look nice. I don't know they're illegal, but they look nice. But again, this is concerns that we have to address before we even go further.
What he's trying to say is that it's as much our problem as his problem.
I mean, when
So that's public right of way. Not
the
his
the, the
property.
problem is that it's become attracted to a developer in the area. I mean, when you look from the top down, this thing is not working still, is it? Anyway, when you look from the top down, there's an undeveloped mass was supposed to be developed. We probably wouldn't be arguing if there was additional plots and large single family homes being developed there. We would probably not argue too much if that was being connected for that reason. But it's not. I grew up on Balsam and Sparta. That is a speedway, okay? I mean, in all fairness, when you look at the map from the top down, and I know you can grab some speed on Kingsgate, confession. But anyway, what I'm saying is, it's not a straight speed through. Okay, now anybody can drive crazy and fast, but it's just not. In all fairness, when you're looking at developing this, 200 more cars or 187 is more. I understand that, and that's a concern. But it's not a super fast way. I take my kids to cross country over near Emmanuel, and it's faster for me to go straight up to 334 and over from where I live behind St. Teresa than it is for me to go Durville and all that stuff. It's going to be slower for people to go through here if they want to try to cut through. I'm just making a comment. So, like I said, the amount of cars is a concern, but it's not a speedway. There's a lot of distractions to slow traffic down through there. I'm just looking at it from the top down. I'm looking at the whole thing. Oh, I've driven on your road. It's fast. I understand.
There for a while.
Mhm.
I don't think you can understand the issue that we have with speed on Kingsgate Road. You can get up there.
Oh.
I have been in verbal arguments with adults and teenagers because one of our children is going to get killed. I don't care what you put back there. Don't open up Kingsgate. Make them enter and exit from Middle Urbana. If Kingsgate condos don't go through Kingsgate Road, then why does this development have to? Why can't they just come in and out from Middle Urbana from their own private drive? Why do we have to disrupt this neighborhood? It's going to be deadly. I've seen it already almost happen.
I think we understand your argument. We really do. Could I ask that we not get repetitive? Not everybody ask the same questions, and to be clear, this can only go on so long, right? Yes.
I would like just a couple clarifications.
Sure.
The easement that we're talking about where the existing senior apartments are, that little road back here, I thought you talked about opening that up. We could make that open and use that as an existing road so the people in the new development could come and go that way. But then I heard you say no, that was not an issue, that you would not use that easement.
I think his point is it's not his road.
It's not up to
It's the
him.
city's road.
That road, my understanding, belongs to the church. The
Well,
road behind.
Whoever it belongs to, it doesn't belong to him. That's the problem.
So we have been told that road will be no more. So I don't know how that came about, if that was just a rumor or what, because It doesn't belong to the city, it belongs to the church. So that
Okay.
probably was a rumor,
Okay.
that I heard. The other clarification, and this is redundant, so I won't go into that. It's just that, you know, Kingsgate is a city road. Where we are, it's city. I don't know if it's city, if it's county where you guys are, but who would be paying for speed bumps or other safety issues? That wouldn't be his company. That would be the city. Am I correct?
I would assume so.
Okay, so how do we know what the city will do to help us with these issues?
I can guarantee you we don't know tonight.
Okay, but that is a big issue for us.
I think there will have to be some thinking about this.
Okay.
We are learning about tonight that will drive the very thing you were suggesting, Mayor Copeland. I think there needs to be a series of meetings between city staff, particularly traffic engineering, and if necessary, using the TCC staff to help. We can engage the Transportation Coordinating Committee to assist us with the developer. What a problem to have. Maybe that's part of our dilemma here. For the first time in how many years are we worrying about adding houses to Springfield? For years, we have worried about people leaving our community and this community dying before our eyes, dying on the vine. Tonight, it's upside down. We're looking at adding homes. And we did this last year. We did it downtown. We did it on the east side. I think it's an opportunity, but I think it's going to require some conversation between everyone involved, certainly the residents and their safety of themselves and their children, certainly the developer who sees an opportunity, and certainly the city who wants to see an opportunity explored, but at no one's safety. So I'm going to encourage staff to set up some meeting between now and whenever we visit this in 2 weeks to have those conversations so that we can look for some of the answers to some of the questions that are being raised tonight. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Could we have 2 more speakers? Okay, you and then you. Talk into the microphone, please. What?
My name is Mike Lowe, and my address is on file with the clerk. I would like to know if there's been any discussion with the city staff if they're going to receive any kind of abatement or tax incentive or any of that. I'm against it if they are. I feel there's problems in the city of Springfield right now with vacant houses and empty lots that needs to be addressed before they start building a new subdivision. And once they put in 94 units in, I want to know that's going to take resources from our fire department and our police department, which they're already struggling. And, you know, when you talk about older people, they're always falling or having accidents. So that takes away from basically the inside city limit. I know that's out there in the city, but I don't like any abatements, and I'd like to know if any abatements or incentives has been offered to them.
No.
Or nothing from the school district either.
Correct? No. No.
Okay, fine.
Name and address for the record, please.
In what direction, northeast, southwest, are their runoff going to be directed in hard rain?
Well, the runoff question, I think, was answered. They're going to drain it back into that pond. Do you want to respond to any of the other questions, or is that city problem?
Our property and everything within its boundary is gonna be maintained privately by us. And every road has a 4-foot sidewalk on it, concrete. There's no parking on our street. Very clean, simple, and long-term, program for, a private.
I think Mr. Christ is asking, where is your stormwater runoff gonna ultimately end up going?
That goes along it goes north of 334 right-of-way. There's an existing ditch and a massive creek just to the west of us that this will drain into out of a reach.
That answer you, Don? Okay, thank you.
Name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Andrew Helmuth. I'm one of the developers of Kingsgate. We own the 15 acres at this point. To answer some of the questions that came up, I feel pretty old now because I guess I'm the only one who remembers this. When, in fact, the ground was bought by the Church of God to put their church right there on the corner of Middle Urbana and 334, they, a couple years later, got together with two other Church of Gods in Springfield and decided that they wanted to put that retirement home there, which you see now. They divided the ground, the total ground, into 4 sections. One was the church itself. The next is a section that you will recognize between the playground of the church and the retirement community and this 15 acres, because they owned it all at once. They, at that time, asked for the R44, the zoning that was not R44 at the time, because that zoning didn't exist, but it was a high-density residential zoning, the highest density you could get. We were to the south of it as owners of Kingsgate, so we were invited to come to the hearings, et cetera, and that's how it got zoned. It got zoned so that they could build the senior center, the senior retirement community that you see now. Moving on, when that was built, that retirement community was built, the city came to us and said, why don't you spend way too much money of your own money and put in the sewer, because we also have First Christian Church, which we would like the sewer. So making one of the worst decisions in my life, I said yes, and we'll do it for this amount of money. Well, obviously, it was much greater. So that street has been designed as you see it, and as the curves are, et cetera, since 20 years ago? 25 years, okay? That's been that way. No, not 25, 20 years ago anyhow. 22, late 90s. So that street's been that way, drawing. We put in the sewer. The city later came in and put the water lines because they wanted to connect the water lines because of pressure or something like that, all on the original design criteria, if you will. So that's how that got there. We were told, and have always been told by the city, that will be connected. That's not a choice we have. We could sell the ground, but it's not a choice that we can't connect East and West Kingsgate, if you will. It's not called that, but Kingsgate. And for all of you who bought houses through me, I've said that will be connected sometime, hopefully in my lifetime, because of the demand is so low for houses of that price range. So that's going to happen one way or the other. Mm-hmm. The other is why they gave such a heavy zoning. Tom and I didn't know why they gave such a heavy zoning to that ground, but we were neighbors. We were not the owners of the ground. So over the years, we've had other groups who've had an eye on that ground to put in a lot more density and things that I didn't want to see there because it would hurt Kingsgate. This is about as low a density of a project that I've seen on units per acre. And if you put 44 times 15, you're getting up to 600 units an acre you could have out. Think of the traffic then. Now, the other thing is, why don't we tell them goodbye and say, develop that into residential lots, which is what's going to be along Kingsgate, single family. Because you'll have more cars if you do that. Because the number of cars in a household like Kingsgate household is greater than 1.8. Think about it. If you want more cars, put it back in the single family. But the zoning is the zoning. We did not zone it. Now, why is it Middle Urbana Road address? Because when they built when Randy Cap built the retirement community, he had to have access. It was not going to work to put a street in there for whatever reason. So the city allowed them to put that in and join it with the driveway. And somebody said that driveway would not take a lot of cars, and it's not. It's a driveway. It is not a street. Okay, so I don't think the city's ever going to want to take that over. And the deal that I was told at the time, that we were told, we didn't see this deal in writing, but the deal with the city between the Church of God retirement community was that as soon as Kingsgate got up there, because remember that, well, you don't know, but that sewer line goes up where that street goes north and south, goes into that property, and sewers that Church of God retirement community. So that sewer line's been there, so that road theoretically would be built over it at some point in the future, 2030, 2000.
Please wrap up.
Okay. My point is, I believe this is about as low a density as you're going to get for that zoned ground. It was zoned a long time ago. We've had people who want higher density. We've got people who want tax credits, which implies lower income. That we at the time said, I don't think so, because that would take us to put in the road. We're going to be putting in the road. We designed this road because of balsam. Somebody mentioned balsam. When we started this in '88, we said we are not going to have a balsam. So theoretically, you can't see more than 8 houses on either side at any point you're on that road. That's why it curves all the time.
Please
That's
wrap
why we're
up.
going to have 4 roundabouts.
Please wrap up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I have another comment. Sorry, it's important. So funny, when you look on Google, the whole road's connected anyway, which is kind of odd to me. But what he's saying is true. I think the real issue, from what I've really heard you say, is the connection of the road that's going to be connected eventually. If you really, really think about a $1,500 to $1,900 per unit cost, you're not talking about a lot of kids. You want to see a lot of cars drive down Cuberry, Stratford, and some of the neighborhood streets where there is single family with 4 or 5 cars per house. That's not what I think could happen here at that cost for those rental units. But to me, the connection is and the real problem is the speed down the road and the connecting of Kingsgate. I really don't think you could argue the car point in that type of development if it holds that price and it's everything you say it's going to be. But that's just my last comment.
I have one more comment, Stephen. Stephen, when you started this conversation tonight, what did you talk about RS5 currently? Which parcel? RS5, you said?
All the parcels to the south and west.
Of the 15.4 acres.
Correct, yeah. On the map, everything shown here in blue is all RS5, which is low density.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. I think we're, as far as we're going to get this evening, there's obviously some work to be done to further explore this option. Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton? Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. What?
You got another public hearing?
No, I want to say a few words about this first, and you can. I want to thank all of the citizens for coming this evening. It's easy for us to recognize that you care deeply about this, and we'll have to see where we can go from here. So thank you for coming and participating this evening, and we hope we can find a solution that will be good for everybody. Okay? The hearing is closed. We have another hearing.
I just wanted to read it when people are leaving.
Okay, wait, she wants to read it while you're still here. Go ahead.
In the effort to stop the spread of COVID-19 and allow public participation at city commission meetings, face coverings are required to be worn by guests at all times. Seating is available with designated spacing, and guests must exit the building following the posted arrows. Audience members wishing to speak on the agenda items during the public comment period may do so at the podium when the mayor asks for comments. Please give your name and address for the record. Basically, want to make sure you leave going that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The public hearing scheduled for 7:05 is called to order. The roll call from the previous hearing will cover this one also. Purpose of this meeting is for public hearing to consider the proposed change in zoning. Has proper legal notice been given of the hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 9.805 acres located at 4401 South Charleston Pike from Springfield Township CP Champions Park District to City CH1 Highway Commercial District was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on September 18th, 2020.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
The movement seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton? Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrap?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
Hello on the screen. This is I-70, this is State Route 41. Here's the fairgrounds. The little closer view of the parcel. For the surrounding land use and zoning, to the north is industrial, zoned I2. To the east is manufacturing, zoned M1. To the south is undeveloped, zoned CH1. And to the west is fairgrounds, zoned Champions Park. This is a view of the area from State Route 41. For the background on this case, the Board of Clark County Commissioners seeks to rezone the subject property to CH1. This parcel was recently split from the larger fairground parcel. They intend to develop this parcel with commercial uses consistent with those located near an interstate that would complement the fairgrounds. The parcel to the south was rezoned to CH1 in 2019. For the analysis, the Connect Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows this future character area as institutional campus. The area surrounding this parcel mainly consists of the fairgrounds. The thoroughfare plan shows South Charleston Pike is classified as a state road. Staff recommendation for this is approval of the request to rezone the subject property to CH1. The CETA Regional Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval. I can answer questions, and a representative from the county is also present.
Any questions of the presentation from the commission?
Were there any objections?
No, there were no objections.
Okay, is there any member of the audience who wants to speak? Is there a motion to adjourn?
And the county person here to tell us about the project. Thought that's what I was waiting. There we go.
Sorry about that, Commissioner O'Neill.
That's okay.
Alex Dietz, Clark County Community and Economic Development, also Clark County Land Bank. Thanks, Steve, for your introduction. We're working with the Dillon Corporation on this project. This has been public for several months now. We're working with them on the Armory parcel just to the south that is also zone CH1. So this is really just to get that land in the correct zoning.
Nothing concrete with regards to what's gonna go there.
Really, the goal is obviously any commercial activity. We're looking for restaurants, like a fast casual type. Obviously, full service restaurants would be welcome as well.
Okay. Thanks.
I assume that we're particularly looking for businesses that could serve to complement use of the fairground.
Absolutely. That's been the primary goal. And that's something that we've been working very closely with the Ag Society to ensure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience want to speak? Yes.
Harlene Johnson, 145 West Possum. So you're just trying to rezone where the old armory was? Is that correct?
The former armory is actually already zoned CH1, so this is just to make this zoning complementary with that.
Okay, and that's all down along 41, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The meeting of City Commission is called to order. Please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our God, we're reminded this evening that democracy is often not so simple or easy. Help us to practice it well this evening in regard to the people of Springfield. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? No move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop? Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The clerk will proceed with first by title only.
Approving a development plan located at 3641 Middle Urbana Road to allow for the multi-family development of 94 residential units. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 9.805 acres at 4401 South Charleston Pike, Springfield, Ohio, from Springfield Township CP Champions Park District to City CH1 Highway Commercial District.
I think we've already discussed those. Anybody have any additional questions or comments? Clerk will proceed with second readings.
Authorizing and directing the city manager to dispose of a 3D printer being property owned by the city and no longer needed for municipal purposes and should be disposed of pursuant to codified ordinance section 149.03.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. I didn't know we had a 3D printer, and I want to know where it's located, where's it going, and how do we get it?
Yes, this was actually a private business that obtained it, Select Tech, which is located out at the airport. They no longer need it. They acquired this through a state capital project, and so the city has not owned or operated this 3D printer. It is some of the original technology, and so that 3D printer is going to go to Clark State for uses in their manufacturing program.
Call the
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 20-224, which authorized the annexation of an establishment of services to be furnished to the property owners at 4401 South Charleston Pike upon annexation to the city of Springfield, Ohio, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Seconded. Comments? None?
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an amendment to the contract with the Ohio Bell Telephone Company, doing business as AT&T Ohio, for a 1-year extension in connection with certain telephone services for municipal purposes for an amount not to exceed $80,000 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Seconded. Comments? Issue? Roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of 43 Mobile Precision 3551 laptop computers and all necessary appurtenances thereto from Dell Marketing LP for an amount not to exceed $72,684.19 through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services pursuant to Ohio's Cooperative Purchasing Act in accordance with the provisions of Section 125.04 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Comments? Issue?
Yes. I want to know, first of all, why are we purchasing the computers? And are the city commissioners included in it? Why not?
The purchase of these mobile computers, these laptop computers, is for staff purposes, for remote work and flexible workspace, so that again, COVID-19 is over, and hopefully, knock on wood, we don't see another pandemic in our lifetime like COVID-19, but to better prepare ourselves as an organization for those remote work situations. We've done a great job of continuing our services throughout the pandemic, but we're still limited on our technology to be able to pursue that. I don't have a list in front of me. I do not believe at this time the commission was included in that, but we certainly can consider that if that's something that commissioners.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else agree with. Thank
Is this something, Mr. Heck, we can get Fed money, coronavirus money for reimbursement on this work?
This is certainly something that's eligible under the COVID-19 dollars that were passed through the state from the feds to local government.
Yeah. Thank you.
Else?
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into LPA agreement number 800834, amendment number 2 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the Durr Road project, PID number 104833, to provide clarity regarding funding sources and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Seconded. Comments?
I have a question, Brian. You've got several things coming up on this. Is there an easy way to explain this so that people understand what the heck's going on?
Yes, I can make that attempt.
I mean, I think it's important. We've been waiting on this, and there's a change in the numbers, and I'd like to know where the city stands as well as the neighbors.
Yes, so this is related to the Durr Road section of roadway between Home Road and Providence specifically, and I'll address the section from Providence to Villa towards the end. But so these two items that you are seeing tonight are to move forward with the design work for this project. As you know, we were working towards funding for a widening of the section of roadway between Providence and Home Road from the existing 4-lane section to a 5-lane section, which include a dedicated center turn lane, as well as a multi-use trail path be placed on the east side of the road. So it would be a 10-foot side path that would allow for pedestrian traffic as well as bicycle activity in that corridor. connecting all the way up to what is now at Villa Road, which provides a connection down to the bike trail via Rig. The roadway needs to move forward with design plans. At some point, this roadway needs to be reconstructed. We applied for safety funds through the state of Ohio. We were not awarded safety funds, which still leaves a significant gap in funding for this project. Project total is approximately 2.9 million. We have 900,000 from the state through the feds in CMAQ dollars, which is congestion mitigation air quality dollars, that can be utilized towards the multi-use trail path, as well as a portion of the dedicated center turn lane. That's 900,000 of a $2.9 million project. The city will, once design plans are completed, will look to apply for other funding sources outside of safety funding to bring that amount down that would be needed to be committed locally for this project. So right now, we do not have the funding sources identified for the $2.9 million project outside of the 900,000 that is committed to the project from the state of Ohio through the CMAQ program. But again, that's not cover the entire cost. Moving forward with the design allows us to design a roadway that needs to be reconstructed at some point in time. That time will depend on when we're successful in applying for and receiving additional funding from state and federal sources at this point. We should know at some point in 2021 if we are successful in receiving that additional funding, to look at what that total gap is and what needs to be made up for at the local level, which at that point in time we would come to commission for authorization and approval to actually move forward with construction. The timeline for construction with design under the ODOT process right now is this project would not be bid out until either the fall of 2022 or spring of 2023, depending on the construction season and the construction cycle. Obviously, widening the roadway, there are some utilities similar to North Belmont, Broadway, McCrite that can start even during the winter construction season, as opposed to waiting towards the warmer weather, which is when paving has to occur. And so that will be dependent upon, again, the construction season, where we end up with design and the ultimate bids. So what you see tonight is moving forward with the design of a 5-lane section from Home Road to Providence and a multi-use trail path from Home Road up to Villa, connecting in with the existing side path that is currently on the south side of Villa Road.
And that is no change from what we agreed basically upon before. There's no change at this juncture.
No change at this juncture.
So there has been no plan drawn up before this.
There has been no designs, only the conceptual plans that had to be developed as part of the public input process, the public involvement. And if you remember, that was the discussion we had, whether we went to a 3-lane section,
right,
kept it a 4-lane section, went to a 5-lane section. Regardless, this roadway needs reconstructed. We believe as staff we need to move forward with the 5-lane section and pursue additional funding sources from the state fed to close the gap on the.
So the answer is right to now, we're going to design under the original plan that we finalized last year.
Yeah.
And see what the end result is, right?
That is correct.
I want to make sure. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Verifying that, Mr. Heck, because I had the same question, Mr. O'Neill. I know everybody's crystal ball has been thrown way out of whack because of the COVID virus. But I also see reports, and all you have to do is drive by a gas station and notice that gas prices are down, which means less federal and state money coming from those taxes into the coffers. As you look into your crystal ball, and it's probably very fractured like most of ours, do you think that will be an impediment to this project? The fact that we've got a slowdown in state and federal revenue from gasoline tax?
It is certainly impacting both the federal and state dollars that are available for roadway construction project. For example, the state originally was estimating a drop in gas tax at the state level by about 35%, brought on by the coronavirus pandemic. At this point, they've adjusted their projections to be about 15% down, but 15% down is still significant, so it's going to put less money. The feds are experiencing the same thing where they have not raised the gas taxes in not sure how many years. But we were fortunate that the state did do an increase to the state gas tax last year, which is kind of keeping us at a stable level of our funds that we were receiving in the past. Without that, we would have seen a significant reduction as well towards local dollars that we could have put towards roadways. So yes, it is an impediment. We have to continue to watch the different programs at the state, federal levels to see what is available. That's what staff do. But we do know we have to move forward with design. Regardless, this roadway will need to be reconstructed at some point in time.
So what this is the first step forward to repairing, replacing Durr Road.
That is correct.
Thank you.
The only other comment I want to make is when I talked to you earlier in this project, when it came back, for whatever reason, they're deeming this project to be less safe than what they presented when they started, which was going to really be safe when you added the bike, when they were going to 2 lanes and a turn lane and the bike. So, in my opinion, we were just punished by the safety money not coming our way because the citizens and us decided this is what we really need there. We only live here. But yet now, because they don't deem it as safe, they threw us out of the safety funds at the time. So that's where this extra million, well, when we're finished here, we're going to have to come up with another $1 million to find that. So again, I'm pretty upset about that. It's not fair because we just didn't like the plan. And at the end of the day, we're now being punished for that. Now, but the heck of it is CMAQ money's still sitting there. And I don't know that the bikeway is going to make it is going to be as safe without some of the things that other money was going to deliver, like sidewalk and things like that. That's my concern.
In the
Brian.
CMAQ dollars, so dedicated center turn lane, the multi-use path, it will fill the gaps on the west side of sidewalk. There's a couple blocks that are missing.
Yeah.
So that will be completed and is eligible under the CMAQ dollars, but it's part of that total $2.9 million.
I agree. I just wanted to let you know that somebody had to say that I think we were just penalized because our project isn't the same as what they proposed, so it's not as, and so we didn't get the paper.
Ready to
Sure.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into modification number 1 to agreement number 32450 with American Construction Point Incorporated for the Durr Road project PID number 104833 to increase the agreement amount by $391,151 for a total agreement amount not to exceed $490,009 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Audience?
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a subrecipient funding agreement, emergency financial hardship assistance, CDBG 2020, with Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield Incorporated, to provide emergency rent and utility assistance to residents of the city of Springfield in an amount not to exceed $100,000 and declaring an emergency therein.
Who do that?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Commission? Audience?
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Drug Enforcement Administration to reimburse expenditures for officers involved in joint operations in an amount not to exceed $50,000 for the period of October 1, 2020 through September 30, 2021, authorizing the city manager, finance director, law director, and chief of police to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, confirming and approving services provided under said agreement from October 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Comments? Audience?
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation Aviation Division in an amount of 79% of the project costs not to exceed $31,600 for the removal of obstructions which are hazardous to air traffic landing at the Springfield-Beckley Municipal Airport, authorizing an expenditure of up to $12,175 to be used as local matching funds, authorizing the city manager, law director, airport manager, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the execution of the grant agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, federal legal requirements and declaring it an emergency therein.
So
to
moved.
adopt. Second.
Seconded. Comments?
Yes, could you read those amounts? Because I must have missed.
79% of the project cost not to exceed $31,600 for removal of obstructions and authorizing an expenditure of up to $12,175 to be used as local match funds.
Else?
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. This here,
Thank you. This is to be presented to Mrs. Orpheus Taylor, who was a commissioner here. She was my predecessor. She passed, and her services, I believe, on Friday at St. John Missionary Baptist Church. This reads, whereas Orpheus Taylor was born on June 6, 1933, and was destined to serve others in many capacities. She was a mother, grandmother, a psychologist, a city commissioner, and an assistant mayor, board member, playwright, and a friend among others. And whereas Orpheus Taylor was the loving mother of 5 children, John Andrew, Felicia Marvell, Antonio Gardia, Jerome Edmund, and Tyrone Dwayne. She was a special grandmother to 4 grandchildren, Reno, Brianna, Biana, and Akea. Whereas Orpheus Taylor worked as a school psychologist, served on the Clark County Public Library Board, was active with the local Democratic Party, attended St. John Missionary Baptist Church, and wrote plays that were performed locally. Whereas Orpheus Taylor was appointed to the Springfield City Commission on January 13th, 2004, served as the assistant mayor in 2006 and 2007, and continued to serve as a commissioner until December 31st, 2009. And whereas Orpheus Taylor passed away in October 2020 and is fondly remembered by fellow commissioners as always looking out for her part of the community, especially the South Side and the African American community. Represented those people well. She was very warm and cooperative with her fellow commissioners and with citizens who needed help. And now for it reads, Warren R. Copeland, the mayor of the city of Springfield and president of the city commission, do hereby proclaim October the 26th, 2020 as Orpheus Taylor Day. And this is signed, and we urge our citizens to honor her memory and legacy by serving your community with a gracious heart like Orpheus.
You. Else, for us,
like a report from staff on the usual 3 items. How are we doing in terms of our staff relative to the COVID virus? How are we doing in terms of services of the city? How are things coming along on the south side development, or to the Kroger store? And then from Mr. Bechtel, how are we doing finance?
Yes, from a staffing perspective, we still are doing pretty well. I wish I could tell you we had nobody impacted by quarantines due to exposure or the virus or symptoms themselves, but that's not the case. But it's not a significant number of individuals within the organization, so it has not impacted or impeded our organization's ability to provide the services to our residents. I wanted to use the opportunity actually to just update. So one of the projects that has continued on despite COVID-19 is our commitment to our neighborhood streets and our neighborhood program. And I'll just say our engineering and service department folks have been doing a wonderful job keeping the project moving, especially during a difficult time project to get moving. And now we're up facing weather. And so I just want to commend them. But just to give an update to the public, so Bill Edwards Drive is complete at this point in time. Euclid and Oakwood are waiting on weather to cooperate to place final layer of asphalt. So they've put the intermediate layer. They're waiting to put that final layer of asphalt. Linden, the pulverization of that street has begun, and then they'll come in and start putting the intermediate final layer of asphalt. North Florence will be pulverized following Linden Avenue's pulverization. And then once North Florence has been pulverized, Maplewood and Fostoria will be pulverized at the same time. And then again, as they finish the pulverization, Shelley Company will be able to come in and complete the intermediate final layers of asphalt. Again, weather depending, but Shelley Company is in town until the project is complete. They're not bouncing around to other projects in other communities, obviously working around the weather. I looked at the weather report. Looks like Thursday, Friday, we might get really nice warmer weather, which is what we need for the projects. And so hopefully they can knock a bunch of it out later in this week. We move.
And this is primarily money that the taxpayers approved in the last levy for street repair.
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner. With the passage of the 0.4% back in 2017, we made a commitment to paving over $2 million in neighborhood streets. And again, the distinction with neighborhood streets these are streets that we're not able to get federal and state dollars for. And so we have far exceeded the $2 million, actually spent quite a bit more. And again, we're trying to make a long-term investment by completing the other utility work that's associated with public right-of-way.
Right.
And so we're going ahead of time. And just an update, we're spending about $1 million in just replacing water services associated with our neighborhood street program in the last couple of years. And that's continued into this year. And so
under those streets are sewers and water
lines,
and
gas lines. So we
and
coordinate with the gas company. Again, last year we had the gas company thought they were good and they were not, but we continue to make a long-term investment in our roadways in our community. Some of the larger projects that have been going on, Broadway is close to completion. North Belmont, section between Mitchell and Holm, is finally outside of punch list items, is complete. That was a long time coming. I just want to thank the residents along that corridor, those that utilize North Belmont for an extended period of time to commute. That was a long project, but I'm glad to say that it's done. And it does look significantly better than what it was.
The residents got to be thrilled.
Yeah,
with
so
what they had and what they've got.
We're excited to have that done, and then we're getting ready to start construction on McCrite, which will extend into next year as well, as it's a complete reconstruction for a major. As far as the South Limestone development, specifically around the Kroger project continues to move. We should next week see demolition begin on the former auction house property that the city acquired that was adjacent to the Kroger. I know the demolition crew plans to mobilize next week. Removing that really blighted structure will help towards that redevelopment effort. And then we are working with Larry Dillon on a development plan for that property, and staff, along with Dillon and his team, are working tirelessly to bring a solution to the food access issue that exists on the south side. And then from a South Limestone, the corridor, again, we received phase 1 funding from the state of Ohio from Leffel Lane to Lansdowne. We presented last week to the state for phase 2 funding, which is Lansdowne to Singer Street, which is just north of the Kroger site. And we are told that we should know sometime in mid-December of this year if we're successful in that phase 2 funding. Would be great, and really improving that corridor from Leffel Lane up to Singer, which is the main section of South.
Thank
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm happy to report we're still holding strong with our finances at this point. Our cash balances are still as strong as they were 2 weeks ago. And as we move forward into the budget season, we're refreshing our projections right now for income tax receipts, and it looks like that we will probably come in about where we were in 2019, which is good
Wow.
news. We appear to be recovering to that extent, so I'm quite happy with that. It's not quite as good as we had originally budgeted. As you might remember, we were budgeting a 3% increase in income tax revenue, and that's obviously not going to materialize, but feel very fortunate that the city is going to have tax receipts that are equal to about 2019, given the situation.
Given all the variables, that's very, very good news.
Absolutely.
When you look at what some of the other cities in this state are facing, 25% reduction, we're doing very well in that regard. That's very good news.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a member of a mayor's organization, and the other mayors of the city and the state are crying to us. So we're lucky to be in this shape.
Absolutely, and it, coupled with staff doing a good job of controlling our spending, so we've to this point, knock on wood, done just fine.
Well, keep up the good work. Obviously, revenue and expenditures are the only two variables sort of at play here. And if revenue's down, then we need to take the expenditures down. You've done that. Kept us healthy as possible during this time. My congratulations to you and all the staff, because I know it just doesn't come out of the Department of Finance, but it takes team effort across the whole organization. So thank you all very much.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience want to address us?
My name is Mike Lowe. My address is on file with the clerk. First of all, I want to thank you for opening up the commissioners where the people can come again and speak after several months. I appreciate that. I've heard from people about Channel 5 not working for some reason, and I'd like to know what's going on with that, because, you know, we do get a franchise fees from Spectrum, so what's going on with that?
Yes, so we're actually relying on Spectrum right now, and that's the issue that exists. We had to update our TriCaster system, which is what pushes the feed out to Spectrum. In doing that, we needed a new digital feed installed by Spectrum themselves. Our IT director, I can vouch for him, has been through email, on the phone, almost every day, trying to figure out where Spectrum is in their review process for getting this approved. We were told this would have happened at least 30, if not 45 days ago, and we're still waiting. He just had another email today from Spectrum saying that they're trying to get an update on their review process to see where we're at. It is purely us waiting on Spectrum at this point.
Okay, I went recently and purchased my license tag sticker, and it increased. And I said to the lady, what happened? And she said, the local tax. I'm paying now $30 for a local tax, and I'm paying $31 for state tax. She said it's going for the road. I said, wait a minute, are you sure? Because I thought my gasoline tax from the federal and state was paying for these roads. So I was kind of shocked. She said that you guys raised it this year for our license tag, but she didn't give me how much it was raised.
I actually believe it was raised in 2019, which is when the state raised the gas tax in that legislation. The state allowed both at the state level and the local level to increase that license tax, the permissive tax on the license fees, by $5, I believe, at the local level. Yeah, so that money goes directly into our street fund, which is utilized for street maintenance and shave and paves and reconstructions and pulverization. It is a mix on our roadways. State and federal dollars do not pay for all of our roadways. It is a mix of local, state, and federal dollars that have to go to the repair and maintenance.
Well, there's lots of roads in Springfield that really need repair. Maiden Lane, Cassidy, Stanton, those areas need repairs. My other concern is I recently went and got copies of the longevity pay bonuses that are paid out every year to city employees for 5 years or more just being employed, not based upon any performance whatsoever, that you give this bonuses out. And of course, you do have contracts with the police and the dispatch, so there's a separate. But for example, in 2019, you paid out bonuses of $781,623.59 in bonuses. I have brought this issue up before. I'm concerned that the city has a spending problem. Did they just continue to spend and spend? It's not a funding problem. Like tonight, you're going ahead with the Durr Road project, but you don't have the money available for it. So I would like for you guys, you think your budget is really good, I would like you to start cutting your spending. This is excessive. I was a county employee till I retired. We never got bonuses at the county. We didn't get Christmas bonuses, or we didn't get anything. So, you know, when you're paying out this money every year, and then you come and ask for a levy, and you're using that money for levy for street and police and everything, I just think this needs to be cut out. Why should somebody get a bonus based upon only their years of service?
I just want to let you know we have a 3-minute limit for comments from the audience.
Well, I thank you for letting me know that,
And you've gone
Mr.
over that
Copeland.
tonight, so that's okay. Name, address for the record, please.
Only a ditch that runs behind the homes on Brixton Drive East. And the city routes water into that ditch from Northern Estate and Villa Road. The city currently charges us $4.94 per month for stormwater. That amounts to $14,969 that our residents in Villa Run are paying. So we feel that the city should help pay some of the costs, since they're running water in this ditch, that they should pay all of or some of the cost to repair this ditch. We currently have a contract with a company, and it's going to run us $42,850 to repair this ditch because of all the water that comes in on us. That's all I have on this. Now, I don't know whether my vice president has anything he'd like to say or not.
Staff needs to talk with you about that. Go ahead.
No, I'm Larry Riley. I live in Villa Run as well, vice president of the association. And, you know, basically I just wanted to reiterate what Don had said, that since we share the waterway with the city, and some other entities in the area, that we feel that we should have some help and support in covering some of those repair costs as well.
Got the message.
Okay.
Name and address for the record.
David Sanford, 528 Yellow Springs Street. Well, it's been about 2 months now. I was out front, man, they had a bobcat and stuff tearing out the front, going up to the other side of the property. And he didn't even have a permit. I called and raised all kinds of disturbance. He came out there, and a few more people came out there. Then he turned around, we talked about he was going to blacktop over the sewer line. Well, he did blacktop over the sewer line. After me and the manager had talked about it, and he said if he did at that point, well, then he would have to be responsible if the line got stopped up, and he'd have to cut the blacktop and fix itself. Well, by the time we got back up again, we had a memory lapse that wasn't what was said. But that is what was said. But he did blacktop over it anyway. And I can't believe that somebody else blacktop over the line and I had the right of way. It's just like that right of way them people had, and that was down there talking about today. How are you going to blacktop over the right of way of a sewer line that you know has been there for years? It's grandfathered in for years. It's been there. It's been grandfathered in ever since that house is set there. How could you let somebody cover it up? You always how you can't cover up nothing that's been grandfathered. Why was it covered up? I talked to him about it. They've covered up anyway. And I'm going to find out if something wrong with the whole thing now. It must be because I'm black they let them cover it up. Because there's no way that you would let nobody else cover up someone else's sewer line has been there almost over 100 years. And the right-of-way was there, and he had the right-of-way. I don't see I could honestly say that. Now, that is the absolute truth. I want all y'all to look into it, because I'm not going for this one. And secondly, I can't believe that it's allowed that kind of stuff to be done. I really can't. And now you talk about the bars going around now. The Auburn Point of Quad, everybody in town allowed to have bars. They stand over in groups with no masks and stuff on and talk every day. There's no one tried to stop anything that goes on around that place. They haven't tried to stop it now, and they never tried to stop it. I've been living over there now for 10 years. The same thing goes on over there that's going on 10 years ago. And that's a fact. The same thing goes over on Center Street that they open that stuff up. That's a fact. And no one does anything about all in front of little Joe, all that carrying on. I brought up down here time and time again. There's never been anyone did anything about it, and it never has been even close to being stopped born. And that goes for all you can. That's the Democrats and Republicans. I only had Democrats doing before. That's Democrats and Republicans. Let's see if we can do something about what goes on over there.
Dave, you have higher volume now than you used to. Good to have you back. Anyone else want to speak to us? Okay. I want to remind everybody that in 2 weeks, the City Commission meeting will be on Monday night because Tuesday night is Election Day. So we will have a City Commission meeting on November 2nd at 7 o'clock here at City Hall. Anybody else? Good. Their motion to adjourn. Move. Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Meeting's adjourned.